Okay, so I've been trying to prepare for this video for like, I don't know, days. The first authentic confession video I did, I had no other intent except to share my joy and feelings of grace and space with you guys because it was so powerful to me. Um, but that was like 2 weeks ago. And since then, God has been working in my life nonstop, it seems. And actually, it's not, it seems, that's the reality of it. I've just began to listen to Him like never before in my life. And um, so, Authentic Confessions has grown into so much more in the fact that now I see no other choice um, except to, I want to share my life to help others hopefully find the peace and joy that I have found in mine. I guess I need to begin somewhere. Like I said, I've been trying to prepare for days on this, and I don't know where it's going to go, but we'll just go with it. Um, to give you just a little bit of background, I'm 37. Um, I have 3 kids. I've been married for 13 years. Um, and I come from divorced parents. They divorced when I was 4. And um, I lived with my mom and my brother until I was 16 in San Antonio, Texas. And then at 16, I moved back to Amarillo with my dad, and my brother had been there for 2 years. And I guess you could say I had a typical childhood, I guess. Um, came from a broken home. Um, they were divorced and only spoke really when necessary. Um, I don't want to give like my whole life story here, but eventually you're going to hear it all because I have seen, I've come to a new realization that the biggest realization I came to is when I was finally able to be truthful with myself about who I really am. Not this false idea of who I want to be, but when I faced and surrendered to the fact I'm not who I want to be or think most of my life thought that I was, I am me, and there are ugly parts of me. And when I say ugly, I mean, you know, stuff that you're not proud of, stuff that brings you shame or makes you feel ashamed of yourself. There are ugly parts, and it took me completely getting present to that part of me for me to move forward. And um, man, where to go from here? So much has happened in the last 2 weeks since that first Authentic Confessions video that I'm having a hard time rewinding back to how I used to see things and see life, but I'll do my best because trust me, it's good stuff. It's crazy, but it's enlightening. So, getting present to the truth of who I really am. First of all, I had to get present to that. And what I mean is, facing everything that I had been running from in my life. I knew the truth, but I spent a plethora of time running so I wouldn't have to face that truth. And in doing so, you find yourself not being truthful with other people so they don't discover those things about you. And when the reality came, it like hit me like a ton of bricks that, oh my gosh, this is a real part of who you are. And it's not this grand idea we have of ourselves, you know. The reality is we have not so proud parts of who we are. And when I was able to face that reality, so much began to open up for me. Like, I can't even put it into words. So much began to open up for me. So, first of all, let me do my best to go back to, I think it was September 16th that I made that video. And it was about a part of my life that had been weighing me down. Like, I literally was stuck in the mud. Not literally, I use that word too much, but I was stuck in the mud. I had found myself in a pile of mud and I had been stuck there. And until recently, I didn't realize how truly stuck I was and how deep I was in the mud and how dark of a place I had been living in. I had no idea that it was as bad as it was, you know. But anyways, after I made that video, so much opened up for me. I came to this reality that I needed to share a big piece of information with somebody extremely important to me in my life. And I didn't know how to do that. Like, I just didn't have the faith to do that. And let's start there, because that's huge. My faith. I was, let's see, maybe I'll start reading from my journal on September 24th. So this would have been probably about a week after the Authentic Confessions #1 video. Let's see. For the first time in my life, I began to understand why I had made certain choices and why they had never worked out. I had always done my best to live good, be kind, nice, compassionate, forgiving, and as non-judgmental as possible. But I had never found contentment in my life. I always seemed to be searching for something. All I knew is something was missing. I began to see what it was. It was God. I had been saved when I was 16 years old in a Baptist church. Within a year, I stopped going to church. I was never taught or read my Bible or sought out God. I just knew Jesus was tortured and murdered on the cross for my sins. I never truly understood the gravity of that. But once I started listening, I understood the way in which God designed man and woman, and then I began to feel relief. Only because now that I knew I was designed in such a way, I could have peace in my heart and soul. And this is what I mean by that. I was not designed for sex before marriage. Big secret. I did not wait until marriage to have sex for the first time. First of all, I never even understood the design of marriage. But once I understood how God designed sex and marriage, all of my discontent made perfect sense to me. I had done everything the gospel warns us not to do. Not so much because it was a sin, as much as there was no way possible for me to be content until I followed God's recipe. And what helped me understand this is a video sermon that I was watching. And the pastor said, what he said completely changed my essence of my idea of who God was. And my idea of who God was okay, there's these 10 commandments. I understand they're from the Old Testament. And I understand that he gave those before he sent his son, Jesus Christ, to pay for our sins. I understood that. But I'd always lived my life doing the best I could to be as, to keep those commandments to the best of my ability. But I looked at God as the kind of father that handed down these rules and said, either keep them or I'm going to condemn you, you know? And so at some point in my life, I guess as an early teenager, I was saved in a Baptist church when I was 16. And so I guess at some point, especially after I had sex before marriage, I think that was the big one. I had always been around, older people in my life that said, all I knew is it wasn't okay with God to have sex before marriage. And so I think once that occurred for me, I thought, well, I don't have a chance now. Like, the Baptist church told me, once saved, always saved, and Jesus Christ has paid for your sins. But I did firmly understand somewhere within me knew that didn't give me a permission slip to go out and do what felt good to me at the time. And I'm not just talking about sex, I'm talking about, a little lie here and there or whatever it might have been. But my idea of God was that I could never please him. No matter how hard I tried, that I couldn't please him. So all I knew to do was do the best I could to be a good person. And so what I heard that changed everything for me, it did change everything, but most importantly, it changed my perception of the essence of God. And this is the sentence I heard that changed everything for me. God is most glorified in our enjoyment, not our begrudging submission to rules. I'll read that one more time. God is most glorified in our enjoyment, not our begrudging submission to rules. It took me a minute, but when I heard that, I was like, what? Wait. I have been begrudgingly submitting to his laws, to his commandments. But then I began to understand, like something just clicked for me. That's the God I had been taught about, not the God. That's the essence of God that I had been taught, or maybe not even taught, but that's what I heard. That's what I heard. Over the I would say few, but I mean more than a couple of times, but the times I had been in church, that's the essence of God I heard was, okay, he created you. He set these rules down for you. Now mind. But then I began to get it. God created man and woman by design. It wasn't an accident. He created man this way, and he knew he needed a helper on this earth. And then woman is created, and we were created by design. And what I mean by design is the whole essence of God changed for me when I understood that his whole creation is by design. So therefore, it changed my idea of his commandments, his laws, his expectations of me. And let me finish reading this, and then we'll see what comes out of it. Okay, it was that sentence: God is most glorified in our enjoyment, not our begrudging submission to rules, that helped me see I had the essence of God completely wrong for the last 21 years since I was saved. I always did the very best I knew how, out of love. But no matter how I did it, I could never produce what my heart knew was possible. My heart and soul is made in Christ's image. Therefore, all along in my DNA, it's been there. The design, the makeup, the recipe. So no matter how good I did something, I could never reach my full potential until I understood I was created by design. God didn't give us a set of rules to live by to prove he was God, not to say, hey, it's my way or the highway. He gave us warnings of what not to do, as he knew how he designed us. And if we did so and so, it would not produce the results our hearts know we are designed to get. Our choices might give us satisfaction for a short time, but that satisfaction won't last. Therefore, our souls are left constantly disappointed, guilty, shameful. We're left feeling lonely, less than, unworthy, depressed, full of anxiety, and I could go on and on and on. We're constantly longing for more. And that describes my whole life. As a teenager, I'm like, okay, so the next step for me is to get married and have kids. Okay, check. I got married at 18, had my first kid at 19. Something still didn't feel right. And of course that marriage, not of course, but that marriage unfortunately didn't work out for us. We were married for 4 years and, had 2 children, and it did not work out for us. And by that time I was 22 years old, and I was still longing for some kind of contentment. And it just never seemed to come, And then I believe I was 26 when I met my husband. And we shortly thereafter got married. And we had a daughter. And she's now 11. And we've been married for 13 years. And, well, there's some issues there too. And I will get into that because I am committed to sharing my life with you guys, to help you, or to maybe just give you an I don't know, I've never had an example of somebody being so authentically honest that I could see something for myself out of their honesty. And I'm committed to do that for you. I'm committed. And trust me, there's some ugly parts in my life. Some of them within my control and some of them not. But the only way that I can share my testimony for God's glory, to show you how good he is to be brutally honest and show you how ugly parts of my life have been. And so I'm committed to that. Anyway, let me get back here. Okay, the closest relationship that could possibly help us identify where God's coming from and who God really is that relationship we have as parents. We never want our kids to hurt, physically or emotionally. That's why along the way we give them advice. We know from our past experiences the best probable approach for a pleasing outcome in any situation that they are facing. So we give our children direction. When they're babies and infants and toddlers, they can't take care of themselves, so we do everything for them. As they get a little older, we began to teach them how to do the small things for themselves. Bathing, brushing their teeth, picking out their own clothes, tying their shoes. Then as they get older, we begin to give them some responsibility like chores, trash, dusting, while all along teaching them manners like yes sir, no sir, please, thank you. And along the way, we've set boundaries for them, or rules. Like obviously, you're not going to give your 10-year-old the keys and send them to the store. There has to be boundaries. You know better than they do when they are ready for the next step. Ultimately, somewhere around 18 to 20, they go on their way and you sit back only hoping they'll remember the things you taught them. Because we don't want our children to stumble. Sorry, that's my alarm. To remind me it's time to almost go get my daughter from the bus stop. Okay, because we don't want our children to stumble or fall or hurt. You want them to be happy and full of joy every day of their lives. And when I saw this parallel open up for me of how I feel towards my children, then it was concrete in my heart, in my mind, in my soul, who God really is. He's not up there judging us at every turn. And something that I heard that was fabulous was, think about your toddler when they're first walking and are learning to walk, and they take a step and then they kind of tip over. And you're just waiting for them to get back up. And maybe this time they'll take 2 steps before they fall. You're not focused on the fall. You're focused on their steps, on their progress, on their growth. And so why I spent so many years thinking and running from God, like Adam and Eve in the garden, so ashamed of who I really am, knowing I have good intentions, but sometimes I made bad choices. It's the same as that toddler learning to walk. God's not sitting up there sitting, and I don't mean it like I think God's some, just sitting up on a cloud watching us. I'm not that naive in my Christianity, but He's not looking at us, focusing on our falls. He is waiting for us to take that next step toward Him. That is what's will bring Him the ultimate satisfaction, is us taking another step toward Him. And oh my gosh, I have taken so many steps toward Him in the next 2 weeks. I am so excited for our authentic confessions, like 3 through who knows how many. Because obviously you can see I can talk. And I'm sorry for that. But I hope if your essence of God is what mine was, I hope this video and me sharing how I have honestly lived 37 years of my life believing God was this, and He's really this. Oh my gosh, everything changes. Like I intentionally But in the back of my mind, like not on purpose every day did I say, okay, I'm not going to open that book today. And I'm talking about the Bible. It was there. It was always there, but I just never opened it out of fear. Because I didn't need to know any more that I was going to fail at or that I couldn't live up to. And I have so much more for you guys, but I have to cut this short, or probably for y'all, you're glad it's almost over. But anyway, I have to go get my daughter from the bus in like 3 minutes. So I've got to let you go, but I hope you start to discover, if you've always thought of God as the kind of father that set these rules down, and like every time you broke a rule that you know is bad and that you know is written in this book, like I know so much more in this book in the last 2 weeks than I have in the last 37 years of my life, because honestly, for the first time, I'm not scared to open it. And the only reason that is because my essence, the idea of who my creator is, has completely changed. It's done a complete 180. And I understand. I don't just believe now his love for me, his true, authentic love for me. I completely have witnessed it and felt it. And that's why all my life I've known of God. But now, as I'm making this video, there is no doubt I absolutely know God now. And this one difference, okay, this might look a little strange because I had to cut the other video short to go get Sam, my daughter, and I'm trying to wrap it up. Basically, what I can leave you with is, there's been a verse of mine that always stuck out in my head, and I thought I did understand it. I just had a different perspective of understanding at that point until about 2 weeks ago. But it was Proverbs 3:5. And that verse is, trust in the Lord with all thine heart, and lean not unto thine own understanding. 3:6, Proverbs 3:6 says, in all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct all thy paths. And that has always had a special place. Like, it's always stuck out to me from the Bible. And I thought I had trusted the Lord with all my heart. The thing of it is, when you're running or you're trying to hide from the realness and the reality of what that heart consists of, which only you know, then how can you follow him with all your heart? If you're running and trying to hide from half of it or a third of it, or however much of your heart consists or lives, or ugly resides in a certain part of your heart, if you're running from that or hiding it or not being completely real with yourself about that and other people, especially your loved ones, then you cannot trust in the Lord with all of your heart if you're trying to hide from that part of who you are. And so once I was able to do that, and maybe Authentic Confessions number 3 will be on my first step I took in, shall I say, blind faith in trusting him before I came to this realization about who he really is. Wow, my hair is really messed up. Anyway, I will leave you with that verse, or those 2 verses, to ponder on, Proverbs 3:5 and 3:6. And hopefully, I knew those verses, and I wasn't a Bible reader until recently. And they meant something to me then. But now when I read them and hear them, there's a completely different meaning to me. And so I'll leave you with those. Just read them and see what shows up for you, and take a step from there. And I will see you guys in Authentic Confessions number 3. Love you. Bye.